Between 2023 and 2025, the biggest companies in the world shed hundreds of thousands of jobs. Google cut 12,000 people, Microsoft cut 10,000, Meta cut 21,000 across 2 rounds, Amazon cut 27,000. And the headlines made it sound like a bloodbath for the tech industry. But here's what those headlines didn't tell you. The engineers kept their jobs. The designers kept their jobs. The product teams largely kept their jobs. What got cut, quietly, systematically, and almost without comment, was the entire layer of people, sitting between the executives and the people actually doing the work. Middle management didn't just take a hit in the last 2 years. It's being structurally eliminated, and the implications of that, for how companies operate, for how careers are built, and for the economy broadly, are something almost nobody is talking about seriously. The story you were told was about a bloated tech industry correcting itself after a pandemic hiring spree. That story is wrong. This isn't a correction. It's a redesign. So let's talk about what's actually happening. To understand why middle management is dying, you first have to understand why it was created in the first place. Because it wasn't always there. In the early 20th century, most businesses were flat. An owner, a small leadership team, and the workers. That was it. The org chart was basically a straight line. Then industrialization scaled everything. Factories got bigger. Companies expanded across states, then countries. And a fundamental problem emerged. How do you coordinate thousands of people, doing thousands of different tasks, when the people at the top can't possibly see everything? The answer was a management layer, a structured hierarchy of supervisors, managers, directors, and VPs, each responsible for a defined slice of the organization, reporting upward and translating strategy downward. This model was formalized by people like Alfred Sloan at General Motors in the 1920s, and it became the blueprint for corporate America for the next 100 years. The logic was sound. Information doesn't move by itself. Decisions don't implement themselves. You need humans to carry information up, carry decisions down, and manage the friction in between. Middle managers were, in essence, the nervous system of the modern corporation, carrying signals up, carrying decisions down, and managing the friction in between. By the 1980s, the average Fortune 500 company had 8 layers of management, between a frontline employee and the CEO. And for most of the 20th century, that wasn't considered excessive. It was considered essential. Then 2 things happened that started quietly dismantling this entire model. The first thing was a shift in management philosophy. In the 1990s and 2000s, as global competition increased, companies started getting obsessed with efficiency. Jack Welch at GE became famous, or infamous, depending on who you ask, for a management doctrine that relentlessly cut anything that didn't generate direct value. Delayering became a corporate strategy. The idea was simple: fewer layers means faster decisions, lower costs, and less organizational noise. Companies started shrinking their management hierarchies from 8 layers to 5, then 5 to 3. The logic was that every layer of management you remove is money saved and speed gained. But even with decades of delayering, middle management survived, because the fundamental problem it solved, coordinating information across a large organization, hadn't gone away. Until the second thing happened. Software started doing what managers used to do. Project management platforms like Asana and Jira made it possible for executives to see exactly what every team was working on, in real time, without needing a manager to summarize it for them. Slack and Microsoft Teams made direct communication across the entire organization frictionless, removing the need for a manager as a communication relay. Data dashboards and analytics tools gave leadership direct visibility into performance metrics that previously required a manager to compile and present. And then, on top of all of that, came AI. Large language models and AI-powered tools didn't just automate tasks, they automated the synthesis of information. The weekly status report that a manager used to spend 2 hours writing. An AI tool can generate a first draft in 90 seconds. The performance review that required a manager's judgment. AI tools can now aggregate data, flag anomalies, and surface recommendations. The one-on-one check-in meeting that managers held to understand team sentiment. Companies are now piloting AI tools that do continuous, passive pulse checking across entire organizations. Here's the reframe that changes how you see all of this. Middle management was never really about people. It was about information, who collected it, who synthesized it, and who distributed it. The people were just the most efficient vessel available at the time. Software didn't eliminate the need for information flow. It just made humans the most expensive way to do it. When Meta's Mark Zuckerberg announced layoffs in 2023, he was unusually direct about this. He said, and I'm paraphrasing, that he wanted the company to be run with a flatter structure, fewer managers, and more direct accountability. He used the phrase, year of efficiency. What he meant, if you read between the lines, was, we are removing the people whose primary job was to move information. And the data backs this up. A 2024 analysis by Live Data Technologies found that management roles declined at nearly twice the rate of non-management roles during the post-2022 tech downturn. This wasn't random cost-cutting. It was structural. Now here's where it gets genuinely interesting, because removing middle management doesn't just make companies leaner, it fundamentally changes how they function. Think about what a flat organization actually requires. When you remove the management layer, you push decision-making authority down to individual contributors. That sounds good on paper, empowerment, autonomy, speed. But it also means that individual contributors now need skills they were never trained for or hired for. They need to understand strategy, not just execution. They need to manage up directly, without a buffer. They need to navigate organizational politics that a manager used to handle for them. This is why some companies that have aggressively flattened their structures have hit real problems. Engineers who are brilliant at writing code suddenly find themselves responsible for stakeholder communication, resource negotiation, and cross-team alignment. These are not the same skills. And some people are very good at one but not the other. There's also a coordination problem that doesn't disappear just because you remove the people coordinating. Amazon tried an aggressive version of this, the famous two-pizza team model, where teams were kept small enough to be fed by 2 pizzas, with maximum autonomy. And it worked well at the team level. But as Amazon scaled, the coordination between teams became increasingly complex, and they've quietly rebuilt management structures to handle it. The honest truth is this: the management layer is being compressed, not eliminated. What's dying is the middle manager, whose job was primarily administrative, scheduling, reporting, relaying information. What's surviving, and in fact becoming more valuable, is the manager who can do something software cannot yet do well. Exercise judgment in ambiguous situations, build genuine trust with the team, and make calls when the data doesn't give you a clear answer. The job isn't disappearing, it's bifurcating. At the top end, senior leaders with genuine strategic authority are more valuable than ever. At the execution level, individual contributors with deep technical skills are more valuable than ever. What's being squeezed out is the middle, the coordinator, the relay, the person whose value was primarily organizational rather than intellectual or technical. The org chart isn't getting flatter, it's getting more extreme. And the people who assumed the middle was the safest place to be are discovering that the middle is exactly where the pressure is greatest. This matters enormously if you are early or mid-career right now, because the traditional career path in corporate America was built around the management ladder. You joined as an individual contributor. You proved yourself. You got promoted to team lead, then manager, then senior manager, then director, then VP. The rungs of the ladder were defined by management scope. How many people report to you? How big is your budget? How many layers are beneath you? That ladder is getting shorter. And if your career plan was to climb it in the traditional way, accumulating management scope as your primary measure of seniority, you may find that the rungs you were counting on are no longer there. What this means practically is that the most durable career investments you can make right now are not in management credentials. They're in depth, technical depth, domain expertise, the ability to do something genuinely difficult that software cannot replicate, and critically, the ability to operate without a manager above you translating strategy and below you executing details. The people who will thrive in a flatter organization are the ones who can hold both simultaneously. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most corporate training programs are not teaching this, because they were designed for a world that is quietly disappearing. The ladder they prepared you to climb is the same ladder that's being dismantled while you're still on it. The layoffs you read about in 2023 and 2024 were not a correction. They were not a temporary response to overhiring during a pandemic boom. They were the first visible sign of a structural shift in how large organizations are built, one that has been building for 30 years and has now reached an inflection point because of AI. The nervous system of the modern corporation is being rewired, and like most rewiring, it's happening behind the walls, invisible until the lights either come on brighter or go out entirely. The shift is already underway. The only question is whether you see it before or after it affects you. If that's the kind of analysis you want more of, the structural changes underneath the surface that don't make headlines, but define what the next decade looks like, subscribe, because that's what this channel is here for.